To order at 6:30. We are in the Media Center on April 19th. Okay, those absent are Scott McCabe, Missy Krause, and Joe Lurick. Everyone else is here. There is no public, right? I thought I saw somebody. Oh, okay, okay. Okay, so there's no public, so there's no public comment. Do you have any correspondence?
I do not.
What? Oh, sorry. It's okay. Brock?
I like the pace, though.
Yeah. Look, we can keep this up.
Do you want me to slow down?
No.
Oh, no, keep it going.
No, we like it.
Okay, so there's no correspondence.
No.
Student ambassadors?
Does this work? Okay. In language arts, we are on another book report, and we have just finished our thesis papers and essay tests. They were difficult, but we made it all with great scores. In science, we are learning about the evolution of creatures, how they start from single cells and become large functioning creatures. It is very fascinating how the organisms can evolve in such a way over millions of years. In Spanish, we are being taught about the foods of Central and South America. We have seen all the recipes and have learned what goes into each recipe, and all of the unique foods like fried grasshopper and tortillas. In math, we just finished the Pythagorean theorem lesson, and we are learning how to find distances of an angled line on a graph. We have virtually completed the 8th grade curriculum, and we are now studying for the SBAC test. In social studies, we are being told about the Industrial Revolution in the north of the United States and the hardships of a slave in the south of the U.S. We are learning about the arguments of slavery, how the workers in the textile mills in the north were in difficult working quarters. I hope everybody had a relaxing and well-earned April break. Sports are now starting back up and thanks to all the volunteering coaches. There are only 39 school days till summer, but who's counting, right?
Thank you.
In language arts, we're learning about a woman named Yoshiko. Her and Papa were separated by FBI workers during the Pearl Harbor bombing. Yoshiko wanted to make this stop, but Mama told her to stay calm and live on. They were sent to a prison camp a few days later and separated from what they loved. In social studies, we're still learning about ancient Rome. I love learning about it because of all the different mechanisms they had back then and that we have changed now. In math, we are practicing for our coming up SBAC test. This test includes what we've learned like percentages, ratios, rates, and lots more. In science, we're learning how different organisms reproduce in different ways. It's very interesting to learn how others reproduce differently.
Thank you.
In Spanish, we are learning a new unit and how to tell time and describe our daily class schedules. In science, we have finished our worm dissection activity last week, reviewed our lesson on food webs and ecosystems, and now we're starting to learn and discuss population studies. The class will also be going outside and catching animals later on in the week. In language arts class, we have been discussing our first research paper and have been going over the first of many steps to do so. Tomorrow the class will be choosing authors and learning how to do the 8th grade book report setup. In social studies, we have been reading about Brazil and its environmental issues. We will also be watching an educational documentary about the Amazon rainforest, leading up to a research paper. In math class, we are currently going over the geometry of composite figures, and once that unit has finished, we will be going on to scale factors and reviewing for the upcoming SBAC tests. As a side note, the track and softball season started today, and a couple weeks ago, we learned no breath CPR in health class.
Thank you. Next is approval of the minutes for the last board meeting. A motion? Okay, Joan made the motion. Jenny seconds. Any questions, corrections? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. For the administrators' reports, Brian?
All right. So for student of the month, let me get an angle here. All right. So for student of the month, for the month of March, students are nominated for being safe, respectful, responsible, and trustworthy. In kindergarten, we have Rylan McClelland. Grade 1, Liliana Lapointe. Grade 2, Mia Duddy. Grade 3, Laliana Beckwith. Grade 4, Connor Savlik. Grade 5, Drew Fabry. Grade 6, Max Gray. Grade 7, Aubrey Rickard. And grade 8, Leah Fabry. So congratulations to our students of the month. Testing, we are underway. We've tested grades 3, 4, 5, and 7. We did make a change to the schedule because we had one class of grade 6 that had to quarantine before the break. So they are going to be taking their ELA portion of the test this week, where grade 7 started last week or the week before. So that was a pretty easy switch. Technology has been working well. With our 2 carts that we're using. We are hoping for the rest of the Chromebooks to come in, which I'll get to next. But so far so good, and we're just working kids through makeup testing, and then next week we start with math, and then finally we end with science. But again, the science is just for grades 5 and 8. And then as far as technology, I've been continuing to try to find out exactly when the shipment would be. I was told that it would be shipped out before the break, but I have not received any correspondence that shows that, so I'm going to be following up again. It seems like I've just been kind of having to follow up, so hopefully we can get those things in soon, because we want to be able to use them, because the computers we do have are being used either by students in the community or for testing. We want to make sure that we have them available for use here and also for our benchmark testing. So hopefully we can get those in as soon as we can. We're collecting resources for our one-to-one rollout. For the iPads for the younger kids and the Chromebooks for the upper grades, looking at what a lot of similar districts to us have done so far to kind of get a blueprint. Luckily for us, there's been schools and districts that have done this. So we're just kind of compiling some information, then we're going to form it to what works for us. And then let's see, what do we have next here? And then the LCS Variety Show. The videos are being finalized. Those that have chosen to be part of this, our virtual variety show. We have offered technical assistance and any way to help out the kids, and really it's kind of been limited more to just the content, not so much the technology. They're pretty good with that. The final product will all be put together into one video. It'll be sent to participants. Also, we'll be able to view it here at school. So many thanks to Kate Gilgenbach and also the entire PBIS team and everyone that's helping out with that. And I think I got to everything. So any questions?
Yes.
On the SBAC testing, do most schools, does it start usually this early? I guess I never really thought of that in the past. Is that the normal calendar?
We started a little earlier because we're trying to stretch out testing among, so if we had a one-to-ones, we would probably wait a little bit longer.
Okay.
We typically do ELA first, where math second, because we want to make sure we can get all the content in for that, and that tends to. Because
that can be a pretty big time difference in the school year as far as how much is being covered, I would think.
Absolutely, and then of course you always find how far out do you go? Because then you get start to get into late May, and it starts to have a different feeling in the air.
Okay.
So,
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Scott?
Sure. So I have the special education report, and it's first of all looking at the numbers. The increase of special ed students for the month was 3. All of them are students that attend LCS. And then really the only other thing I have to report is the flyer and the advertisement went out, and we've already started making reservations for pre-kindergarten registration for the 2021-2022 school year. We will be doing our Child Find developmental screenings for children who will turn 3 on or before August 31st. We'll be doing that on Friday, May 7th. between the hours of 1:30 and 3 o'clock by appointment only. And we're doing it on that day. That is an early release day. So all the other students will be gone from the school. So that way we can have those children come in for the screening. They can bring a parent with them. They can go through the building. They can get their screening. Then they're going to receive their goodie bag, and we're going to send them on their way. So they get to kind of walk through, at least get to see what the pre-K classroom looks like on their way out. So that's coming up May 7th.
Okay. Any questions? So the only thing I noticed is we had an increase of 16 students for the year. And
Yes.
that seemed a little high, is it?
We're actually on state average for special ed for our numbers. So the state average is around between about 15 and 16% for the state.
Increase a year?
For total population in the
Okay.
school. Average is about 15 to 16%. We are also at that same average, about a little over 15%. Also, a couple of the increases that we've had in the last month are new students to our school district. So pre-K students, we've had some students move into the district.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? Okay. Diana.
So the Medicaid report for March. For the month of March, we received about $5,200 worth of receipts from Medicaid from all of our reporting that was done for special ed.
Di, you
What?
gotta push that up. Some people can't hear you.
I was in touch with Kathy Blackwood. She's our representative from CompuClaim, and I asked her about the cost report that was done last year for 2019, and she said we should anticipate an additional approximately $4,300 as a result of the cost report, which was nice. I asked her when we should receive that, and she didn't know for sure, but her guess was either in June or July, which that's fine because there's no fiscal year-end implications there. For the month of March, we did not expend any money. We do have a little bit sitting in encumbrances, and those are for contracted services. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions? No questions? Okay. Brian McGlue.
All right. Over the break, we had AL Fire Protection in. They performed the quarterly inspection on the sprinkler system. All zones were tested and received by the monitoring station, and no issues were reported. Security Technology was in to do the yearly performance, PM on the security system. The tech cleaned all the cameras and confirmed that the angles were still good. They tested the card readers, making sure they were all working order, and tripped the panic buttons to confirm that the signal was being received by the monitoring station. We also had BT Lindsay in to do the yearly PM on AC units. Depending on the style of the unit, they cleaned or replaced the filter, cleaned the condensate pumps, and blew out the condenser. During the PM, they did find a bad condensate pump on one of the units and replaced it. I'd also just like to throw out a thank you to the Lisbon Fire Department. The rope on our flagpole had broke, and they came out with their bucket truck and replaced it for us. So thank you to the Lisbon Fire Department.
Nice.
That's all I have.
Any questions for Brian? Okay. Sal?
Thank you. As mentioned, I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cold. As mentioned in the lunchbox, we submitted the application for the SR2 funds. It comes to approximately $222,501. As you see in your packet, we are hoping to purchase hydration stations, something called Go Guardian, which is an app to help monitor the internet. Point 2 social worker, which I know was high priority. Provides summer school and transportation, and we did put out a needs survey for that. And approximately 50 students right now
Oh, wow.
are saying that they would come. Again, we need to transport, and that's okay. We checked with the bus company, and everything's good there. Purchase air purifiers. We selected the middle school wing only because that seemed to be the wing, for whatever reason, that we had more COVID cases occur. Also, that we're securing temporary custodial help, escorts for students in the hallways. We want tutors for our kids when they get next year, when everyone comes back, and we're almost there anyway. I'll talk about that in a minute. But we want tutors to help for loss of learning, and we're excited about that. Now, Megan Jenkins and I did happen to call this morning the state because we submitted the application about maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago. We were early getting it in. That was our intent. And the gentleman that we talked to said the preliminary look at it looked good, but he wasn't allowed to give us the official go-ahead because his team still has to look at it. We're supposed to hear in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So that's all I can tell you right now. Also, the REAP grant, it's also called the the Rural School Achievement Grant. We applied for $33,383 for a personnel position, which gets funded through this grant every year. There's nothing new there. It's for someone that, I think you'll guess who it is, who does media, STEAM, video. It's that title that goes on forever. And he does a good job, by the way. Anyway, without mentioning names. And also some money, a small portion of it is going towards supplies in all the areas. Now that one, we probably won't hear about till summer, probably the summer. But we typically get it,
Yep.
so we're not too worried about that. Just so you know, there's a security grant on the horizon. We were just told about that. I think that one, Brian McGlue and I will be looking at. I think we're going to apply. We have a meeting and a webinar tomorrow on it. So just to give you a heads up, that probably will be coming. Reopening of school. As you know, we are now 5 full days a week for in-person instruction. 93.9% of our students are here. Yay! We're very, very happy. And by the way, I think it's even up. We've just,
Oh, wow.
yeah, we just
Nice.
heard about a couple more kids today. So we're getting there. I'm hoping to hold a reopening of school committee meeting maybe next week. I want to talk to Missy Krause about it and Dave to see if they're interested in hearing how things are going. Sports, are now happening. There's a lot going on. And we want to see if there's any impact at all from the travel. Well, not saying there's going to be, but just want to see. What else? Oh, yes. I have emailed Superintendent Jay Hartling in Ledyard about the possibility again of our kids attending Ledyard High School for the following year. I haven't heard back from him yet, but there was a break last week. So, I mean, I will, and then I'll update the board. One thing I do want to add that wasn't in your backup, Tommy Sparkman called me this morning. I had put in the lunchbox, because at the time we thought we could do this, that perhaps the Board of Finance could just say they're adopting the budget and not go to referendum. They thought it was per the governor's executive order that happened under the pandemic. And Tommy said this morning, no, that wasn't sunsetted, as they said. Yeah. So anyway, there's going to be a town meeting. You're used to that. They're targeting May 3rd at 7 o'clock p.m., but they put out that notice, not us. It's going to be in our cafeteria. It will be in person. I was very happy to hear that, to be honest with you. Do I envision that there's going to be difficulty regarding this, our budget? I really don't. Maybe I'm being foolhardy, but I don't. He also said that right now the referendum is going to be at the town hall in-person vote. They think as of this point.
Yep.
But if something happens, that could change. But I wanted to tell the board. It's a little different from what I told you in the lunchbox maybe a week or two ago. But he just found this out.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Okay. Any questions? The only thing I saw is on this here.
Yep.
It had 0.2, but it's not really clear, so if you just put a 0.2, nobody's going to think it's 2 social workers.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean?
I do.
I was just talking about
On the
this paper
worksheet.
here.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jude.
Yep. No questions? And the remote learning and everything we need to do for the rest of this school year, right?
Yes, we do. That hasn't been lifted.
Yep.
No.
Okay. And any talk about next year?
Not yet, but there's a lot. A lot of people are asking the question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
Just speaking of the remote learning, I just do want to commend how well the recent 6th grade outage was handled with the whole online video component. It was a tremendous improvement over how it had been with just some assigned work. The teachers were great. I think the kids did a nice job, but it was wonderful with the full day engagement the way it was handled this time.
And didn't the teachers do a phenomenal
It was
job?
excellent. It
Because
was
I know some people were, what's a good word? A little worried that it might not go as well as it did, and it went like clockwork.
Yes.
Very nice.
So, and actually, I just want to credit Brian Appison, Principal Brian Appison, for the tape. I know you all know that he does a good job, but I think it's important for the tape that he always checked in to see how it was going. You did, Bri. I know you're smirking under there, but you lent your support, and I think that went a long way. But honestly, it went very well.
Good. That's really good to hear.
Every time I checked on them, it was a thumbs up. So there wasn't much to do. They were
Excellent.
set. So it was good.
Very good.
But
very
thanks,
good.
Dave, for saying that, really. The teachers will appreciate it.
Okay. So we're all set there? Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the approval of monthly expenditures. Motion to approve monthly expenditures for March 2021, fiscal year 2020-21, in the amount of $1,118,161.53. Missy makes the motion. Joan seconds. Any discussion, any questions, any comments? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Then the financial statement, a motion to approve the financial statement for March 2021, fiscal year 2020-2021, as presented by the administration. Missy makes the motion. Do we have a second? Joan makes the seconds. Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Transfers. Motion, a possible motion. Diana, you usually go over this?
Just a little bit, yeah. So
Yep.
now this is the time of the year where, we have to clean up the accounts to make sure that no, group of object numbers are in the negative. So that's all I did was I just, where I knew there was money left in the account, I just moved it over to the accounts that were short.
And the shortages were COVID-driven, pretty much.
No.
Oh, I was looking at contracted services and then all the sports underneath, that's why I said that.
Oh, no, because I think we do have a line item for COVID that is in the deficit, but for the most part, the grants that we have received covered our COVID expenditures.
Okay. Okay. So, a motion to acknowledge the 2021 fiscal year 2020-2021 transfers as presented by the administration. Missy and Joan. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to new business, the new microphone system that we're using.
Well, I think it's self-explanatory, to be honest with you. I know that it might have been Scott McCabe, who can't be here tonight, that was asking if, we had the specs, if we could show them. That's why it's in your packet.
Okay.
But it was at a very reasonable price.
Good.
And Novus is really the organization or the people that got this going. So I want to compliment them.
Uh-huh. And how many of these did we get? Just what we see here or more than this?
Two,
Oh, I can't see them.
one set of 12 or?
I thought it was.
Okay, okay.
So we got what?
Two sets.
Okay, so we have plenty.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm
Excellent.
sorry. That was your question? Oh, yeah. I think we're in good shape.
Okay, so we don't have to be dragging them around the table.
Correct.
Okay, any questions, comments about the microphones? Yeah?
Yeah, they work well.
Spring sports.
Just a statement that softball and track began today. We did delay it, as you know, by a week because we did have, as Brian Appison talked about, a COVID situation. But it all came together today. Baseball, we just want you to know, is on hold only because we are waiting for a certification to come through. And once that comes through, we'll be off and running. The CSDE did put out a statement to superintendents just to, monitor closely any impact. Not saying there's going to be one, so please don't misread me. But any impact from the travel that might have taken place over the break, as well as sports, because some districts are having some issues. We're hoping everything will go well here, right, Principal Appison?
Absolutely.
Okay.
doing what we can. We're definitely hoping that.
Yeah. But that's all. We just wanted to go on record. That's all.
Yep, good. Any questions? Okay, the website.
Mr. Appison is going to take that because I believe Mr. McCabe was going to report today, but he couldn't be here. And Mr. Appison is on the team for that with Megan Jenkins.
Yep. So basically, where we're at right now is the planned organization that that we're hoping to have has been sent to Novus, and now they're essentially building up the blueprint, so to speak. And once they're done with that, they'll show us what they have. We can comment on that, give feedback, and then try to backfill and put everything in where it needs to go. So right now, it's not in our hands. We're just waiting to hear back. But the GNT kids, Mrs. Jenkins, and the feedback from Scott and everyone else has been very helpful. I think we're well on our way. Very good ideas. It was really good to get the kids' insight. And again, thanks to Mrs. Jenkins for working with them so closely. They had some great ideas and were really helpful. So if we can keep it student-centered, that's always a bonus. And you know, I think we're well on our way. So hopefully we'll get that back soon, and then we can really start to get it going from there.
When are you looking to have this up and running?
Well, our goal was to have it up and running in April, so we're a little behind. That was we were ambitious with that, but we figured if we had an ambitious goal, we can at least get things going. So haven't heard anything yet as far as coming back there from Novus, so hopefully we should get that very soon, and then we can start getting things together. And what's good too is we'll be able to have the site operational while the old one's still there, and then once we get it where we feel like it's good, we can set it live.
Yep.
So we'll be able to work with it before we actually have it going live.
And the reason why I asked is I thought the answer was going to be for the new school year. So.
Yep. Yeah, we figured the more we can get out in front, the better. So.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the May meeting and possible action. So we have asked Jessica Ritter to come to the board to talk to us about protocols related to the Board of Ed. You know, when are we a private citizen and when are we a Board of Ed member? Those kinds of things. And I've talked in the past, and Missy and I have talked about doing board training maybe once a quarter, because, you know, we get new board members on and we don't do any training, do we? And have CABE come in once a year and do something. So that's sort of what we're looking at. Do you have anything that you want to say about this?
Not really. I had told Missy Kraus that perhaps on this issue I should just let the board talk about it. But I think you did a good job. That's really about, you know, protocols, and many boards go through training.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I think that's all I'll say at this point.
I think it would be helpful. I think just Missy and I have been reviewing all the bylaws, and there are new statutory changes. There's some new language and all that sort of stuff that I think would be helpful to kind of go over with somebody else.
I also think that there's new sensitivity issues.
Yes.
You know, our public has changed, we have changed, and I think it's helpful to be on top of some of this.
I agree. Good. So Jessica's on board?
Yes,
Okay.
Missy said very much so. One of the questions. Oh, you go ahead.
No.
I apologize.
I was going to say what we're looking at is starting at 5:30. So we would start at 5:30. We would do an hour or less than an hour, hopefully, and like I said, do it once a quarter, and then the meeting would start at its regular time.
The only question that I had as superintendent is, did you expect any LCS administrators at that training, or is it just for the board? I never got to Missy to ask her that.
We didn't talk about
okay.
that, but I'm thinking it's going to be the board. Maybe you would want to be here,
Okay.
just so that you know, but
Yeah.
I don't see as though the rest of the staff
Okay.
would need to be here.
Well, I do agree with you, but I didn't want to, you know,
Yeah.
force
And
my.
the only time I could see the rest of the staff here is if the training was, say, special ed.
Yes.
Then I would think you would want to be here.
Yep.
But I think it would be, it's only my opinion, but I think it would be voluntary on the staff's part.
Okay, but you
That's
would
my-
like me to be there for the
Well,
training?
I think it would be helpful
Yes.
for you to know what we're talking about.
I agree. And as long as the board thinks it's okay, that's the only reason I'm bringing it up.
Right.
Okay,
right.
I'm good. I'll be there.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So it would start at 5:30. Dave?
Is that then part of the meeting? Is it a core? Is that fall under the freedom of information? Is that a public meeting? I just because
you-
we're gathered, does it have any kind of FOI requirements, or if we're broadcasting the meeting, is that also broadcast? I don't know the answers, I'm just posing the
Right.
questions.
Right, and that's a really good question, and I don't think that we've thought about that, but we would have a quorum, so it is technically a meeting. So maybe that's something we need to ask Jessica on how to handle that.
Okay.
Because I don't think we're going to record it and broadcast. You know, that's just my opinion at this moment. So
Yeah, I agree with the questions. I had said to Missy that, and I know nothing, so please, I'm just throwing this out there. Could we call it a work session? Does that make a difference? I don't know. Missy was handling that with Jess.
Right, and
So-
that's why I think that we need to ask Jessica.
Yes, I agree.
And
I'm with you.
And I'm glad you brought it up, Dave, so that we can design this right from the beginning and not have to backtrack. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So now we're down to 8th grade graduation.
Probably Brian Appleson and I are going to take this topic. We only put it on the agenda for the mere fact that we've been tossing around ideas. And if everything goes well, as we're projecting it to go well, we would like to have an outside ceremony, perhaps this
Nice.
year. Now there would have to be designated tickets and things because we can't have the world come. I mean, that's the unfortunate
Yeah.
part. But I mean, if this can't happen, we'll certainly do the drive-through. Don't get us wrong. We're going to do something, but we're kind of looking at an outside ceremony. One of the things that Brian and I wanted to bring up is that we kind of have mixed feelings about the awards. Now, last year, we didn't have monetary awards. We felt that people were hurting somewhat with regard to finances and jobs and layoffs and the whole 9 yards. I don't want to get too into it. But this year, you know, some people do want the monetary awards. I have to tell you, Superintendent, I have mixed feelings about it, and Brian does. That's not saying we're pro or against. We just were wondering if the board would want to give some thoughts on it. If you don't, we're okay with that. But if you would like to give thoughts on it, now would be a good time.
Your microphone.
Was your concern that the people who fund the awards wouldn't be able to do that? Was that the?
Yes, that's pretty much it. Even businesses were having a hard time to some degree because businesses were losing money. So I think, Brian, you are more, where are you leaning?
Well, I
Maybe
think
I don't want to talk for you.
I think part of it is that the awards are different monetary values too, and if someone can't do it but one can, and then you start having differences and things like that. So trying to look at an equity part, I think at this level, I mean, none of the awards are huge, and I'd like to give money where we could, but you know, I think the idea of the award itself for me is what's important, but I also understand the value of those that have sponsored those awards. So it's kind of balancing it. So those are my mixed thoughts on it. Because some people feel very strongly that, you know, we're funding this, we want to make sure it goes there, but then maybe
Right.
another award is not being funded, and trying to keep it as fair as we can. I mean, I don't know if maybe the thought is to make it one big pool of money and split it, but then again, it depends on how they're funded, because they're funded
Yeah.
so differently.
Right.
Sh-
Yeah.
Could we just put out there, you know, I know that the businesses and the organizations are contacted, do you want to give again? And just see what the feedback is? And sort of let them decide on their own? I don't know any other way to do it.
We can do anything. No, I mean that.
No,
we
but
can.
I mean, what are the other ideas? How else would you go about doing this?
I mean, one idea would be to not have monetary awards. The other thing would be to, you know, business as usual, to see who can do what. But then that's the concern of, you know, one award is funded, one award isn't, and try to balance that out. You know, we don't want to cause any disruption there, but obviously.
Well,
Go ahead.
I think what you were saying is, could we just ask the donors
Mhm.
in advance, like now?
Yeah.
Would you be able to make the contribution to this year's awards? And if, you know, 95% of them can, then maybe go ahead. And if the answers you get are more hesitant, then, I mean,
So maybe we could
Student-
kind of
Yeah.
survey and see
Students
where
don't
we're
need
at.
to know.
Colleen usually handles it, so I could have Colleen start, but we'd have to start soon.
That's typically what happens every year anyways.
Mhm.
Are you going to
Yeah.
do this?
Yeah. So we can see what people come back with.
Some answer right away, others don't.
We just could phrase the question a little softer, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what we would do.
Mm.
We could do that.
Yeah.
And then see what happens. If it came out like 95% could do it, we could, between Brian and me, we could find the money for the other 5%.
Mhm.
That wouldn't be a problem, but,
The
Did-
board might be able to too.
or the
so-
board,
Right.
yeah. But, yeah, we could do that. Kyle, we'll start that tomorrow, maybe? Okay. We'll do that.
Is there a minimum amount to each reward, or, you know, how is the dollar amount decided? I thought whoever was giving the award, they're the ones that decided.
They do.
So that some could be $15 and some could be $100?
Well, I don't know if it's
I
that
don't know what, I
discrepant,
don't know
but
what
there
the
is
range is.
Yeah.
it, 100.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I mean, there is, which we want to get into someday with a discussion. Graduation has been an interesting topic this year, and I think if you heard some of the comments that I heard, and also Principal Appleson, people have mixed feelings about even having a middle school graduation.
Yeah.
So not now. I don't think it's the appropriate time. But next year maybe we can just have a quick discussion on it and see what the board's thoughts are. I never really, until it came to my attention, I never really thought about it. And all of a sudden there were multiple people saying things. I'm going, wow, I never thought about this. That some people don't, they're not really in favor of a middle school graduation. And some, I think, if we ever said we're going to take it away, would be like,
Oh, yeah.
what are you saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll talk about that next year.
But no, what I was going to say is, why don't we put it on the agenda for the summer?
Oh, okay. That's a good
And,
idea.
you know, it's sort of fresh on everybody's mind,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it gives us plenty of time to reinvent the wheel if
That
we
sounds
choose
good.
to do that.
Good
Okay,
idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Yes, Dave.
I know in some years past, they had an 8th grade, was it like a graduation dance or something? Only reason I'm asking, I've had other local towns contacting
Oh.
me about having their event, for instance, at the campground. So I just didn't know if there was anything going on like had been the case at the, what's it called?
Like at the
Meadows
barn.
Place.
Yeah, the barn.
Barn, sorry.
Yeah, we hadn't really. We were looking more at the graduation itself,
Okay.
just based on where we're at. I mean,
Yeah.
that seems to be the number one priority.
Fine with me. I just, they were asking, when they were
Yeah.
asking is, oh, when is, and I said, I don't think there's anything happening with that similar event, so, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, the next thing on the agenda is algebra class.
Principal Brian Apperson and perhaps Mr. Dave Nowakowski might want to talk about this topic. And I can jump in if you want,
Yeah,
but go
I
ahead,
can
Brian.
Just kind of go through and show you what our practice is now. Currently, we have 2 classes per grade level. So essentially, what we're doing is trying to, on math, trying to have a more accelerated group and then have a group that is going to be more standard. In years past, when we had more classes, if we had 3 or in some years we've had 4 classes per grade level, we've been able to do like 1 class that's algebra and the rest being the typical 8th grade math. Obviously, with smaller sizes, it's been a little bit more difficult. And in typical years, we have cohorts in our 7th and 8th grade, and what that means is that the kids don't travel totally with each other, so it's kind of the opposite of what we're doing now, by having smaller cohorts so they kind of intermingle. So if I have a class with Dave, I may not have every class with Dave, so to speak, as a kid. So that kind of breaks up how the levels might be. But basically what, in talking to, our math teachers and certainly now with Mrs. Nolan and Mr. Wheeler, really we only look in the 7th and 8th grade. What she tries to do is just to accelerate everyone as far as she can, and basically differentiate within those 2 classes. And obviously having a higher group and a lower group, she's able to differentiate more specifically within that. So that's the how it's been going. We did actually just get some good news as far as NFA placement tests. It looks as though 2 kids have qualified for honors geometry. So which really kind of shows that some of the acceleration that is going on in that class is really working. Because last year we had one student get into honors geometry, and I don't think we had one the previous 3 years. So that's a big step up. Plus, I have to check on the number, but it seems as though every kid that was recommended for honors algebra did get into that. So, so good news there. But essentially, that's where we're looking. It's kind of a you know, it'd be an extra class if we were to separate it. You know, it's not always a perfect fit, but like this year we had 25 in one group and 22, 23 in another. We went a little bigger with one group because we could. So it kind of depends on, it's really a lot that goes into that. So that's where we're at this point. I don't know if you wanted to jump in.
I had only spoken with Mrs. Nolan a little
Yeah.
bit, and I think if something were to be done, it would probably have to trickle down a little bit. And I guess even though there's only 2 home rooms, for lack of a better term, logistically and schedule-wise, probably prohibitive to try for there to be 3 math classes. All I'm saying, if you have 2 home rooms, 24 kids, 48 kids, is it logistically prohibitive to have an algebra class and 2 other unleveled or leveled classes? I guess that's my big question. Is
So 3 years ago, we actually looked into trying to do that.
Yep.
And logistically, it created a lot more problems than it solved. So we didn't go there. One thing that we did make a change with was our enrichment block. A few years ago, we went to making 7th and 8th together and 5th and 6th together with the idea that those accelerated students could come from both 7th and 8th grade. It doesn't have to be just 8th grade getting that enrichment. It doesn't have to just be 7th grade. So really trying to find those opportunities there. The other thing too is just certification wise, you only have so many people certified to teach math in 7th and 8th grade. So being able to juggle things around there, you're kind of limited. You have the one teacher that can do it. So, but certainly, you know, we're always looking at that. I mean, math's always been a focus for us, so we're trying to just look for
I didn't
any.
know whether, you know, how deeply to delve into the SBAC, for instance, and I know we try to bring up the overall average, but looking at where we usually are for 3rd, 4th, 5th, it's that diminishing returns almost. And is it that some of the kids who, when they're in 3rd, 4th, 5th, they can still be somewhat accelerated within their own class, but then the instruction almost has to change if you want to keep that level of achievement accelerated. And if those kids who were here can no longer, for lack of a better term, sometimes stay here if they're not able to get that instruction. So I didn't know how much of a factor that was in how our scores have kind of been reflective in the upper grade areas, unfortunately. So
Yeah, and I think that's without scores from last year. We will have scores this year, but you know, just from my observations in the past couple of years, the push of our 7th and 8th grade math teacher to really get all kids wherever they're at to get them higher up.
Nope, I would agree, but I know it's probably easier for kids from sending towns who have the algebra component to qualify, for lack of a better term, at NFA for the honors geometry because they've truly completed an 8th grade quote unquote algebra course, which many of the kids this year, I feel, without delving into it too deeply, I feel they probably almost have, but because it's not labeled as such, you know,
it's trying to give flexibility too, because I mean, really the goal is if both groups can accelerate through algebra, then that's what we'd like to do. But we're gonna go with what the kids can handle. So, but yeah, in an ideal situation with more ability to move around,
and it's I agree when you say the ones they can handle, because it was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. I just remember subbing back then. I think there was only 2, but one of them was an algebra class. Yeah. And I got to be honest, I was only in for a few days here and there, but of that group, only half of them, no offense, really should have been in what you would call an algebra class, because the others were struggling. They were really struggling with the concepts. And it was nice to get them brought along, but it probably isn't fair to say, let's take the half and call them algebra, because some of them may may struggle with that, so that's hard.
I do recall, I mean, again, I wasn't an administrator at the time, but I do recall some kids struggling in algebra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they were in that class and
Yes.
having to move, and there was some struggle with that.
Yep.
So I guess kind of looking at the flexibility of it.
Yeah.
But
All right. Thanks.
So I have a question. So if we're looking at the number of students here at Lisbon School growing, because it seems like each year we do grow a little bit, at what point do we look at 3 7th grades and 3 8th grades? What's the maximum number per kids in a classroom nowadays?
Well, I can speak for in my time. I mean, we've had groups up to about a few years ago. The larger when we explored the 3 classes for math, I think we had one class of 28.
Yeah.
But obviously, in younger grades, that tends to be a little bit more impact. We wouldn't have a class that big in like kindergarten or first grade. So currently, like our first grade is separated into 3. So I guess it's a decision that we have to make.
No, you're right. When I first got here, I remember there was a huge 8th grade class. It was 28, and then a 29th kid came in. And I remember going, whoa. That's when I came in January. Yeah. I remember that year. We've gone down in class size since then. We have.
Yeah,
right.
So we've been fortunate.
But it seems like we're starting to creep up. If we look at the total number, not just, any.
Yeah.
Total maybe, but it's
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, it takes a little
Yeah.
bit to get to that
variable.
next.
But I
Yeah.
think this does tie in, I'm gonna tie this into, at some point, I think it's important that you look at, you have the 3 firsts now, and you're roughly at 50. If that number continues to say 5th grade, I would hate to lose that teacher, but if kindergarten or first grade has 47, I think we're much better served by 3 primary
You are.
grade educators than bringing that person further along the line.
Yes. And that's in the
Unless it's greater than
research.
50, you start getting up to that 50, we were talking 27, 28, then maybe that's different. But if you're right in that 51 range, at some point you maybe cycle that person back. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
been our philosophy that
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
that I've seen. So.
Early intervention.
Okay. The next thing is budget projections for 2020-21.
And that will be Diana.
Yep.
Okay, so I've updated the spreadsheet once again. This time though, rather than leaving, as you can see, it's drastically changed from the last time that we met. That's because I moved some of the things that now I know for sure are going to happen up above into the projected year to date. So for example, there's actual money in the student activity line because we know there are sports and clubs that are going to happen. So I put that number in there. Projections are still there for substitute custodians. For Anthem, I believe we have 2 more months to pay. For FICA, that's what I believe is not encumbered due to, again, substitutes not being encumbered or the sports or clubs not being encumbered, so we have to put a number in there. The retirement contributions, those are the sick time payouts that we talked about a couple of months ago. Last month, I actually had it in the top number, the certified salaries, but it really needs to come out of retirement contributions, so I just moved it down. Let me see. I projected out our legal fees, and happily right now, it's come down a lot from what was originally projected the beginning part of the year. For contracted building repairs, I put a number in there that Brian is definitely going to use. Transportation, we have projected out for our out-of-district students, the transportation costs. We have since done blanket purchase orders, though, to finish out the year, which would make it easier. Contracted services, the same thing. I'm just projecting out some. Adult ed, the grant hasn't come in yet. Like I said before, it's the end of May, so I won't know what that number will be as far as the board goes, what our contribution will be. So I just zeroed out the line item. Custodial contracted services, that's what we're projecting to use. Again, we have POs that we need to do. Electricity, that's a projection. Oil, we were going to put some money into the diesel generator. Capital improvements, that is an estimate for the air conditioners we talked about. The $49,000 is the iPads, and the $619, I believe, is a vacuum that Brian wants to purchase. I'm still estimating that if nothing changes, The rest of our excess costs will be about $14,000. So that would bring right now, the total down that's remaining to about 83,000. But again, the substitutes are not in that number. Anything else that could possibly come up that I haven't accounted for has to come out of that number, which I guess would be the segue to the next agenda item. So right now, the way I'm figuring it, we're at 83 right now.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Okay, next is the current needs for the LCS and possible action.
Yes, usually at this time of year, we have a discussion, the board discusses, how much money we might have left, so to speak, which Diana just went over. And do we have current needs that perhaps we want to spend that money? And how much money, so to speak, would go back to the town? So it's getting a little late in the game. If we're going to
Yep.
do something, it would be at this meeting to probably say go ahead or not go ahead. I really don't know where the board, and whatever it is great. So
Right.
don't. So I thought we'd just bring it to the table. Now, Brian McGlue put together this list for us. Thank you, Brian,
Okay.
very, very much. And then Diana, Brian McGlue and I met and prioritized it. And the money, of course, that's approximations, but pretty close. And as you can see, the total, if we went with everything, comes out 71,441.
Okay.
But again, I don't know how the board feels about going forth.
I have a question. The bottle filling stations, what does that mean?
I'm going to let Brian address that.
So those are water fill stations. Instead of having individual bottles that we've been providing the kids with this past school year and eliminating the water fountains,
Yep.
they would just take their water bottle, go up underneath it, and fill in.
So is that the same as the hydration stations that are
It,
on
it,
the ESSER grant?
it is, but it's two different locations. It would be for the 8th grade and 4th grade wings.
Got it, okay.
Somebody's got to have a racket on that, because I mean, that's just such a cost. I mean, I understand what it does, I understand what it achieves, but I know everything's expensive, but boy, you look at that and you go, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but we did try to factor labor into that as well.
Yeah,
So.
I got a hose, I mean.
So what would you like to do with this list?
How much did we give back last year?
I want to say about less than 15, between 12 and 15,000, I want to say.
Okay.
And the range
Do you
over the
want-
years, right, has been
So
around there?
We would
Yeah.
be looking at, we'd give about, maybe about 10,000 back this year, if we went through all of these.
I couldn't hear you.
We would be giving back about roughly 10,000, maybe a little bit more this year, if we still went with all these.
If we did everything on this list.
You're right.
But you have to keep in mind, so what's not in my projection are the substitutes and anything else that comes up that I don't know about.
Right.
So this would really be cutting it close.
Okay.
But you could stop at number 11
Oh, sure.
if,
Oh,
yeah.
sure. Yep.
So-
What number would you feel comfortable at? Not the priority order, but a dollar amount. If 71 takes you too close to 83, what do you feel comfortable, like 60, leaving you a little 20-ish buffer? And then if some of those goes back to the town, so be it. I mean, I don't want you sweating in June because we got everything and suddenly we're
Right,
gonna ask
there's
the
a
town
problem.
for $3,212.
No, we can't do that.
Well, you kind of gave us a number for your buffer. You want to
Yeah.
give it to the board?
Yeah, I'd like to stay around 15.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this is pretty close to that.
pretty close.
Is it too close?
Yes.
That's what it,
So
well,
what would you
say
like
it.
for a buffer, Di?
So then do we
So-
stop at number 12?
Yeah.
Or Or the other thing I was thinking, do we take out the lower cost items? You know, I see something for 500, 800, 1,000. Do we take those out thinking that we might have the money next year for those? You know, because they might be a little easier to get because they're small numbers. I don't know.
I mean, most of those are on the bottom underneath 12 anyways, and
Right.
they're the lower priority.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, if we cut it off at 12,
I think I'm a little curious about the walkie-talkies and them being last. It seems like we need walkie-talkies for what you do.
Yes, we just, go ahead, Brian, we just put in
I
order.
was gonna say, we just purchased some, so these were in the event of replacing the older ones that.
Okay.
Yeah, just like an.
So you have some, you're replacing the older ones already, and this would be to replace.
The next batch.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it makes sense that it's at the end.
I guess my question then is this prioritized order agreed upon among you guys, or is this just someone put this together?
No, it was agreed upon by administration.
All I need to know.
I have one more question. Are some of these, you know, from 13 through 17, are they easier to order items? I know some items you need a time frame to get. Are the walkie-talkies, are they like from Amazon? Can you get them in 2 days?
It takes about two to 3 weeks.
Okay. Just because you know, maybe we can kind of prioritize
Yes.
13 through 17 as something. If we find we're having extra, we can, you know, in May we can decide, okay, let's buy them. If for some reason we have extra. Does that sound like a plan?
No, I think that's a real good idea, you know, if you can get something right away to hold off on it, because you could just, you know, I don't even know where you'd go to buy folding chairs, but just go pick them up, and then you'd have them that day, versus waiting 3 weeks for something.
And my only requested addition, not for this year, but maybe for the future, is a new movie screen in the cafeteria. When we had the meeting the other night, for instance, that screen in there is old style portrait type. It's very small, and with the projectors these days so good, there's no reason not to have, I think, a bigger screen up there. If we ever get back to movie nights or any kind of audio
Yeah.
visual presentation.
It's a good idea, actually.
But they're not that much, and that one, that's.
No, that's a good idea.
That one's just
Great
small.
idea.
We didn't even think about it.
Great idea.
Small. And that silly microphone hangs in front of it. It drives me out of my mind.
And you know, Dave, you just brought up something really good, because, you know, we all see things differently. So if any of the board members ever see something and say, hey, why don't we, you know, bring it up. Because,
Yeah, that's
like
a good
Sally
idea.
said, she never thought about
No,
the screen.
never.
So just
But
bring it
he's
up, let us
right.
know. Yeah.
Because I look at that screen every time we do a budget presentation. Okay.
We've commented. We didn't
Yeah,
think
and
of
then
it,
you
Dave.
forget about getting one.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, yes.
I gotta tell the truth.
Okay, anything else about this list? Does anyone want to make a motion about this list?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
have to be
ahead.
recognized.
No, go ahead.
Is it okay? So I'm not trying to put Diane on the spot, but I'm a little worried now about what do you think that buffer is? Because I would hate, like that Dave said and the board said, that we're in a pinch. So are you thinking differently?
We need a real number.
Yeah, are you thinking differently from what we talked about? Which is fine, than what we talked about.
Well, like, I'm not sure, but I think that there'll be some unemployment charges hitting our account, which are not here. Like I said, I know the substitutes are not in there, so the substitutes are about 6,000 a month right now is the way we were running. And any other repairs that are above and beyond what we had put in here under the projected column. So that's what would be coming out of there.
So we need a total number.
For this month? If we could revisit next
No,
month?
if we're going to do a motion.
Well, so that's my question.
Right.
How many of these items, you know, kind of along Lauren's question, have to be ordered like now if we're gonna do it? And, I mean, I'm assuming some of the things, like air conditioners, would have to be ordered quite a bit in advance.
Right.
Whereas
That's correct.
perhaps things like a podium could wait until later. Like, looking at this list, is there a different way to organize it so that you would be more comfortable with what has to be ordered sooner?
Or-
and could be postponed, or, I don't know.
Yeah. Or do we pick a dollar amount?
I
Let's
was-
say, go ahead.
When I was looking at it, I was thinking we would make the motion to proceed with items 1 through 12, and then maybe in May we can revisit 13 through 17. You know, maybe
Yeah.
we'd have a better estimate on where we are and some of the expenses that may still come through. Because that would, if we stopped at 12, that would give us an extra $7,000 roughly, in addition to the roughly 10. So we're almost at probably $20,000 extra. So I think it would be safe if we proceeded with 1 through 12.
Does
And-
that work for you, Diane?
Sure, and all that has to happen is the purchase order has to be cut, has to be issued.
Okay.
Doesn't mean the item I mean, it would be great if the items would come in, don't get me wrong, but the purchase order has to be cut before June 30th.
Okay.
That's,
All right, so that
So-
gives a little bit of flexibility.
well,
Yeah, but.
Are you ready for Lauren to make a motion?
yes.
Okay, Lauren, make your motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we proceed with lines 1 through 12 and revisit 13 through 17 in the May meeting.
Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Joan seconds. Do we have any more discussion? Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Any committee reports? No committee reports. Any additions to this agenda?
No.
No additions to this agenda. What do you want on the next agenda? So obviously, we will put items 13.
Dave, Mr. Nowakowski, did you want to bring up about the policy? You brought us up at the reopening committee about the policy about dress code? Or, yeah, you
No, I think something's gonna come from this.
Okay,
I
all right.
just think
I just didn't want to negate that. Okay.
Just to make sure, I think that our dress code policy, if it addresses masks in the traditional sense of masks, that it's not misconstrued as you can't wear a mask, and I'm guessing that's gonna be a
So,
whole state thing
We
coming.
had actually redone the policy at the beginning of this event. And, you know, and masks and, you know, have to fall within the regular restrictions of the dress code. You know, no alcohol, no firearms, no drugs on your mask, whatever. So I think it's in there.
Okay.
We can double check and see what
Okay.
comes from the government. I mean,
Okay.
You know, I don't know, CDC, Governor Lamont, I have no idea.
someone.
Someone. But can we add to the next agenda, a review of the bylaws?
Yes.
The bylaws? The Board of Ed bylaws?
Okay, so anything else? Anything else for the next agenda? No? Okay, and we have no public, so there's no public comment. So we are adjourned at, it looks like 7:35.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you.